What's up guys, it's MTGMatt for you, and today we've got 20 new cards, a lot of new exciting ones. We've got a new Mythic Rare Planeswalker, tons of crazy sorceries, so be sure to watch until the end to not miss any of them. And let's jump right into the first one, that is Narset of the Ancient Way. A 4 mana, 4 loyalty Planeswalker in blue, red and white. Has 3 loyalty abilities. Her +1 is you gain 2 life and you add blue, red or white, and you spend this mana only to cast a non-creature spell. Now, I'm going to read out all the abilities first before we talk about this card. Then her -2 is draw a card. Then you may discard a card. When you discard a non-land card this way, Narset of the Ancient Way deals damage equal to that card's converted mana cost to target creature or planeswalker. And then her ultimate -6, you get an emblem with whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this emblem deals 2 damage to any target. So we've got a 4 mana, 4 loyalty planeswalker here, which is centered around utilizing non-creature spells. And let's look at the abilities individually. So the first one, I think it's a nice little ramp here. If you play this card, you're going to build your deck around having a lot of non-creature spells. Gain 2 life is nice because you're going to be a bit controlly if you play this. And then you add some mana. And my initial thoughts on this card, for those of you who don't know, there has been an article a long time ago which had actually leaked this exact card, so now we have confirmation that this was true. And back when I did a video about that, my initial thoughts were that on turn 3 you play your Flux Channeler from War of the Spark, which lets you proliferate every time you cast a non-creature spell. On turn 4 you put down Narset, you +1 her, and use, for example, your blue mana to cast an Opt. And bam, she's already at 6 loyalty. And well, she can get removed. But I think the way you want to play this card is you want to get this emblem and use it to win the game with a lot of non-creature spells. Her -2 is some really great removal, I think. If you build your deck around it, then this -2 can easily be deal 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker. Helps you remove something on the board really easily. And also, what's nice about the -2 ability is that you draw a card and then you may discard a card. You don't have to if there's no actual target. So all in all, I really love this card. I think you can build a deck around her, build a deck around getting the emblem, proliferating a lot to maybe get 2 of these emblems. Maybe you throw in a Shana there, which also hurts your opponent over time. And I think it's a fun card to brew around. Think about how can you proliferate pretty well, and so on. What non-creature spells do you want to put in the deck? I really like this card, and I'm gonna go ahead and give it 4 stars. I'm even tempted to go in the direction of 5 stars. I think it's really cool. So I think it's still rather restricted, so I give it 4 stars with a tendency to 5 stars. Next up we got the Ultimatums, crazy sorceries, and here we've got the Eerie Ultimatum. So all the Ultimatums are in 3 colors and they all cost 7 mana. Here it's in white, black and green. It's a sorcery which says return any number of permanent cards with different names from your graveyard to the battlefield. So an absolute crazy card. It encourages you to build decks where you don't have a lot of the same permanent cards. I would say more than twice, because this is when you get the most value out of this card. The effect is super powerful, can be absolutely game winning, and I just love this card. I mean, 7 mana is a lot, but you're in green, so you can ramp, and you can basically you maybe play around milling your deck and then getting this card and returning all its permanent cards back to the battlefield. And a really powerful card. Also, what I love is it gives you a reason to think creative about deck building, because it says cards with different names. So if you want the maximum value, you want to have a lot of different named cards in deck. Great card, I give it 4 stars. Next ultimatum is Emergent Ultimatum in black, green, and blue. Also 7 mana, and it says search your library for up to 3 monocolored cards with different names and exile them. An opponent chooses one of those cards. Shuffle that card into your library, and you may cast the other cards without paying the mana cost. Exile Emergent Ultimatum. So, little bit of a complicated card. It basically comes down to you choose 3 cards from your deck. They have to be different names, and you get to cast 2 of them without paying mana costs. And your opponent has some say in that, because you can remove one of 3 cards. And you're obviously going to choose like big cards. I think the noteworthy aspect of this card actually that says cards. It doesn't say creatures, planeswalkers, and so on. Just needs to be monocolored cards. Now, that being said, it's a spell in a 3-color that you would play in a 3-color deck, and it requires you to look for monocolored cards. So this combination, I think, is actually a little bit restrictive, because if you really want to utilize this, you want to have like a big, you want to tutor for big cards, so that this is really worthwhile. But you can also only choose from the monocolored pool of black, green, and blue, or even more if you play a 4 or 5 color deck. That's possible too. So I'm not really sure about this, guys. It's obviously very powerful, but I don't think it's actually going to see that much play, because I don't know. It's 7 mana. You get 2 cards on. You get to choose 2 cards. Maybe there's just some crazy combo potential here, but then again, how can you have combo potential in this card if your opponent can just take 1 card away? So the more I think about this card, the less convinced I am that this is actually going to see play. I mean, it's a crazy card. I love to have like crazy powerful cards in the game. It's always good. But I'm just going to give this 3 stars, because I don't think it's going to be very meta relevant. Next up, we got Ruinous Ultimatum in Mardu colors, which is a little bit simpler. Destroy all non-land permanents your opponents control. So for 7 mana, you completely wipe your opponent's board, and on your opponent's board, all the enchantments, artifacts, creatures, planeswalkers, everything is gone. Super powerful effect. Now, for me, the question here is Mardu going to be a powerful color combination? And maybe this card could carry a Mardu type deck, because it's just so powerful. I just don't know how you would get there to 7 mana. Maybe you just put 2 of these in the deck. Then again, I think it's such a powerful effect, and it's game winning, because it's on your opponent's board. So you can definitely play, I think, 2 of these in a deck. And I'm gonna give this 4 stars. It's just so powerful. And where I think this card becomes really absurd is if you play a Fiery Invention deck, and you have your fairies and tutor this out, and just boom for 7 mana. And that's actually what concerns me about this card. It's such a powerful effect, and the card, like, the design is made in a way that you need 3 colors to cast this, to make the card not too crazy. But you can just get around this problem with Fiery Invention. And I think this in the sideboard in a Fiery Invention deck like in Grixis Control is going to be super annoying. It's a very powerful card. I give it 4 stars, but I think because of the fact that Fiery Invention and Fairy of Wishes exists in Standard, this card is going to be very annoying and maybe kill a lot of the fun in a lot of games. Next up, we got a crazy card. I love this card. Song of Creation, 4 mana and 2 more colors. It's an enchantment with 3 effects. First, you may play an additional land on each of your turns. Whenever you cast a spell, draw 2 cards. And at the beginning of your end step, discard your hand. Now, this is one of those cards where you just sit down and say, I'm gonna make a Song of Creation deck, try it work. And I love this card because you can build crazy decks around it, and you just need to try to start thinking, how can you exploit this? How can I even like use the fact as to discard your hand? Maybe you have a Reality Everwise on the board, which lets you redraw your hand after you discard your whole hand. And apart from that, it's a crazy value engine, right? Like you play this, you get to play additional lands, you draw a lot of cards. And I mean, it's in Timur colors, so obviously this would fit into a Timur Elemental deck. Then again, Timur Elemental has already so much value that this might even be an overkill. Maybe there's such a thing as too much value, actually. And I'm gonna give this 3 stars, just because I'm not sure that it is actually going to be competitively viable, but I just love that this card exists, and it's a card that you can always experiment around and try to be creative in deck building. I love it. Next up, we got a new companion. It's called Jegantha the Wellspring, 5 mana 5/5, Elemental Elk in Gruul colors. And the companion requirement is no card in your starting deck has more than 1 of the same mana symbol in its mana cost. And then the activated ability is you can tap the Wellspring to add a Wooburg, and this mana can't be spent to pay generic mana costs. So a deck where I could see this being played for its companion restriction is kind of like 3 mana decks, for example, decks with 3 colors. And then I would view this as you've got a 5 mana 5/5 that taps for 3 mana. Helps with some mana fixing. If you manage to build a deck that can more or less easily fulfill the companion requirement without restricting your deck too much, I think that's actually one of the better companions. More or less, you just have a guaranteed 5 mana 5/5 body with a little upside of, I would say, basically giving you 3 mana, because I think it's very rarely the case that you will be able to utilize all of the mana. So I think it's a nice companion. It's not like super crazy, like a super crazy companion around which you build your deck. But I think with the companion cards, if you have a rather, let's say, low restriction companion requirement and get some upside because the card starts outside of your deck, it's just some extra card you will always have. If you can utilize it, then it's one of the better companions, and I'm actually going to give this 4 stars. So next up, we got Dusk Mentor, 3 mana human monk in black. And when it enters the battlefield, you put a lifelink counter on target non-human creature you control, and then you can pay 2 mana and tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control with lifelink. I think this could be a viable card in black-white decks, because there are some black creatures that have lifelink, but a lot of white creatures have lifelink too, or white also benefits a lot from gaining life in general. And just paying 2 mana to put a +1/+1 counter on all your creatures is great if you can make like a lifelink tribal deck, maybe. So I think this is one of those better keyword enablers, and I'm going to give this 3 stars. Next up we have Sonorous Howlbonder, 3 mana 2/2 human warrior with menace. And each creature you control with menace can be blocked except by 3 or more creatures. I think the way you should read this card is basically each creature you control with menace can't be blocked. Period. Because it actually doesn't happen that often that your opponent has a lot of creatures on the board. And 3 creatures is a big requirement. Now, this pushes like the Menace Tribal deck, which I really like. And if you put it in that deck, I think this can be a nice enabler because you want to be aggressive and just smash your opponent's face. This helps you even more get through. So I give this 3 stars. Next up we got Fright Mentor. 3 mana, 3/2 human warrior. And when it enters the battlefield, you put a menace counter on target non-human creature you own. And then you pay 3 mana and tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control with menace. Now this is also meant to push menace, however, I'm not sure this is viable because it costs 3 mana and it doesn't have menace itself. If it had menace itself, I think this would be cool, but this way I doubt that it's going to see play, so I go ahead and give this 2 stars. Let's go with Farfinder, a 3 mana 1/1 fox. Colorless mana, but it's not an artifact creature, it's simply a creature with Vigilance. And when it enters the battlefield, you may set your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. So some land tutor in colorless mana, and it's got Vigilance. If you're like planning to implement this in your Vigilance deck, I just think at 3 mana you have so many better options, even if you want to ramp. However, this is in colorless mana, so I'm going to give this 2 stars because it's not going to see play. However, the card in the vacuum I think is actually kind of solid. Next up we got Drannith Healer, 2 mana 2/2 human cleric in white, and whenever you cycle a card you gain 1 life. And you can cycle yourself for 1 mana, so I think you have to look out for all cycling cards that just cost 1 mana, because all of those can really push a cycle deck archetype. You want to have like cheap cycling costs to get your cycling triggers going. And because of that, I'm going to give this 3 stars. The effect itself, whenever you cycle a card, you gain life. It's like, yeah, nice, whatever, but I don't think that in a cyclo deck you're going to have like life gain synergies. But watch out for this card simply because it has a cycling cost of 1. So next up we've got another companion. It's Kaheera the Orphanguard, a 3 mana 3/2 cat beast in Celestial colors. And the companion requirement is each creature card in your star deck is a cat, elemental, nightmare, dinosaur, or beast card. Itself has Vigilance, and each other creature you control that's a cat, elemental, nightmare, dinosaur, or beast gets +1/+1 and has Vigilance. I think that's an excellent companion card to put right into your elemental deck. In your elemental Timur deck, there is no restriction at all. You can even put 3 more of these into your actual deck, which means you start with an extra card in your hand basically, which gives all your creatures +1/+1 and Vigilance. Maybe you can even utilize this for a Vigilance Matters deck. And I think it's an excellent companion card that definitely is going to see play in elemental decks. So for me, this is a 4-star card. And next companion is Zirda the Dawnwaker, a 3 mana 3/3 in Boros colors. It's an elemental fox. And the companion requirement is each permanent card in Star deck has an activated ability. So your artifacts, planeswalkers, creatures, and so on. They all have activated abilities. And abilities activated are mana abilities, cost 2 less to activate. This effect can reduce the mana and it costs 2 less than 1 mana. And then you can pay 1 and tap it so that target creature can block this turn. So it's an elemental fox. Elemental could matter. Maybe just find some way in your elemental deck, although I don't think so because elemental decks usually don't have that many active abilities in them. However, So I think the restriction is not that hard to meet. I mean, you have your Planeswalkers artifacts, and you can put 4 of these into your deck, because it itself has an activated ability, which is nice. And then you get a 3 mana free fee that reduces your activated abilities by 2. Now, is that really good? I mean, we've got Behemoths Familiar in standard right now, which never gets used or never sees play. However, maybe this is different for Boros colors. Maybe you can utilize this effect more there. What comes to my mind is, for example, in white cards you have enchantments where you can activate abilities, like Dawn of Hope comes to my mind. And it's also each permanent card. So, and it's for all abilities, not only for creatures. So I think there's some potential here. I don't think it's going to be super powerful or super over the top, but I still really like this card. And I just also give this 4 stars because I love this companion effect and just the creativity that it's going to spark in you. Next up we got Offspring's Revenge in Mario colors. It's a 5-mana enchantment, and now this one's really interesting. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you exile target red, white, or black creature card from your graveyard, and you create a token that's a copy of the card except it's 1/1. It gains haste until your next turn. So the turn this comes down, you immediately get the 1/1 that can attack immediately by exiling a creature card from your graveyard. And of course, that creature card, if you want to play this enchantment, you need to have creature cards that give you a lot of synergies or a lot of enter the battlefield effect, right? So, I mean, in Mario colors, I think black has some nice ETBs, and maybe you can really abuse this card. For example, what would be nuts is if you exile Dracozev. You get a 1/1 Dracozev, but when it attacks, it still does its damage to all the creatures or to all your targets. So I'm actually not sure about this card because I don't know if in Mario colors you're going to put a lot of stuff into your graveyard. But maybe this, if you build your deck around it, so that you have a lot of enter the battlefield effects or just a lot of creatures with activated abilities when they attack, then maybe this could be good. But I think it's going to be more of a 3-star card. Yeah. I think it's cool. The effect is cool, but I don't think it's going to be very strong competitively. Next up, we got the almighty Brushwag. 1 mana, 1/1 green. It's a Brushwag. Has Trample as a 1/1. And for 4 mana, you can activate its ability, and then it gets +3/+3 until end of turn. Now, this is a 2-star card. It's not going to see play in standard, I think. But I think it's noteworthy for draft. And I also want to note here that paying 4 mana on an activated ability to give you creature +3/+3 is actually a really nice deal. So this is not a garbage card at all, but I don't think it's going to see play. Next up we got Necropanther. 3 mana 3/3 in Ors of Colors, Cat Nightmare. It mutates for 4 mana, and when this creature mutates, you turn target creature card with CMC 3 or less from a graveyard to the battlefield. Now that's a nice effect. Maybe this is a card with some new combo potential out there. I don't know. I give this 3 stars. It has the mutate ability, which is actually pretty useful, and I think it's fine. Let's go with Flame Spill. 3 mana instant red. Deals full damage to target creature, and excess damage is dealt to that creature's control instead. I don't think that's good. For 3 mana, you have better removal spells in red, and I think the excess damage part doesn't really matter. So I give this 2 stars. Next up we got Skycat Sovereign. 2 mana 1/1 Elemental Cat. So as you see, a lot of elemental synergy. And it's flying, and it gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control flying. And then you can pay 4 mana to create a 1/1 white catbird creature token with flying. So this definitely goes into also into Azorius flying decks. It's real nice there. It's a nice 2-drop that gets huge very fast, and with Azorius flying you want to be very aggressive. So maybe I'll give this 4 stars. I think I'm going to go ahead and give this 4 stars because it also comes down turn 2, which is also very aggressive. So I think that's actually a really good card. Next up we got Fire Prophecy. Now that's a juicy one, a juicy common card. It's a 2-mana instant in red, and it is 3 damage to target creature. You may put a card from your hand on the bottom of your library, and if you do, draw a card. I think that's an excellent card in red, because 2 mana deal 3 damage to target creature is like your baseline removal, or like your baseline efficiency. But then you have the option to basically discard a card in a way and draw another card, and I think that's really good. I could imagine this being played in a non-creature spell heavy deck. You just use this for some nice removal and to get through the deck faster. So I think this card is actually really good. It's for me like a 3-star card, but maybe like with a strong tendency to 4 stars. Yeah, I mean, it's not game breaking, of course, but I think it's for the mana cost and the fact that it's an instant is very nice. So for me, let's say between 3 to 4 stars, but with a strong tendency to 4 stars. And last card for today is Of One Mind. It's a 3-mana sorcery in blue, and this spell costs 2 less to cast if you control a human creature and a non-human creature. And then you can draw 2 cards. So 3 mana draw 2 cards is just Divination, I think it's called. So that's basically a standard card, but then if you play it in like a bonding type of deck, you pay 1 mana to draw 2 cards, which is excellent. And maybe because of this card, this type of deck could actually see some play. So I'll be generous here and give it the benefit of the doubt and give it 3 stars. So there you go, folks, all the preview cards for today. If you don't enjoy the video, please don't forget to leave a subscribe. And stay tuned for more spoiler cards, because there are still about 100 cards left in Ikoria, Lair of Behemoths.